Hi, welcome back to our Rich Habits, Poor Habits weekly video. Hi, Tom in the United States.
Hi, Michael. It's good to be back and seeing your handsome face.
Thank you very much, Tom. And in these weekly sessions, we're delving into the research that Tom Corley did in 2004. He started a 5-year study of finding out why the rich are rich and why the poor are poor. And he's written a couple of top-selling books, Rich Habits and Rich Kids. And I apologise, this is terrible. I've had a quick mental blank. What was the third one that you did?
So Rich Habits, Rich Kids, and Change Your Habits, Change Your Life.
Of course, how could I forget that, Tom? And together we've written Rich Habits, Poor Habits, which is really delving into the research I've done, mentoring people, and the research Tom's done. And what I know you said to me in our conversations, Tom, was when you first started doing your research, you had a couple of preconceived ideas about wealthy people.
Yeah, and these are myths that were passed down to me by my parents, people that I knew who were also poor. It was almost as if they were passing along these myths so that you didn't feel so bad about being poor, right?
It justified their position, didn't it, Tom?
Yeah, and it really was a disservice because you're here for maybe, if you're lucky, 80 years, 90 years. It's not very long. And to be living those 80 or 90 years stuck in the belief that, just because you were born poor, you're going to stay poor. Boy, that's an awful cross to bear.
Okay, Tom, well, what I'd like to do is work through those myths now. Before I do, though, for those people watching this, do us a favour and pass it forward. Thank you very much, because we built a very significant community on our Facebook channels, on our own individual blogs, on YouTube. So share this with one person, pass it forward, depending upon which of the various media you're looking at, because if we can help a couple more people, that would be good for us. And you're going to be rewarded by helping your friends as well. So, Tom, I know one of the myths that you initially went into your study with, and it's a common belief, is that rich people inherited their money. But that's not true, is it, Tom?
Oh, it's not true in my research, Michael. And by the way, it's not true in a recent study that was done by WealthX. They do a survey or a study every year. They put one out. And this year, they actually had a higher percentage that were self-made millionaires than I did in my research. In my research, I think there was 76% were self-made. In the WealthX study, it was 80%. And so what does this mean? It means that, wealth is not something that typically just stays within generation after generation. It's almost replenished every generation. And you have an opportunity to access that wealth, because just because you're not rich doesn't mean you can't be rich. 80% in WealthX and 76% in the Rich Habits study weren't rich.
In Australia, we have the BRW Rich 200 list. In America, you have the Forbes list. And every year when we look at those, you'll see that there are some people who've inherited their wealth. No argument about that. But every year there are immigrants, people where English isn't their first language, people who finished high school, people who didn't go to college. All sorts of people have become wealthy and have even trickled to the top of the tree of finances. So you're right, Tom, it's not necessarily inherited wealth. Another myth is a lot of people say that rich people don't have to work hard. And that's a fallacy. In fact, you've got to work really hard till you get to the point you don't have to work hard, don't you, Tom?
Yeah, and we have something called the Census Bureau in the U.S., and they gather a lot of data on the lives of individuals. And one of the data points that I uncovered while researching the Census Bureau data that they gather was that wealthy people actually work longer and more hours than poor people. And I know this is going to be shocking, but they work 5 times the hours of poor people. And you might say, that's impossible. How is that possible? Well, many of the poor people didn't have jobs. They were unemployed. They were perpetually unemployed. Or if they did have jobs, they were part-time jobs. in the wealthier households, the ones that were really succeeding, oftentimes they had a husband and wife team that was making money together. So you had 80 hours or 100 hours of productivity during the week. So I found in my research that 44% of the wealthy, they just worked 11 hours more on average than everybody else did.
Interestingly, Tom, I've found that wealthy people have multiple sources of income as well. So they're not only working in what you'd maybe call the day job. They'd have stocks, they'd have real estate, they'd have part-time businesses on the side as well, Tom.
Yeah, that's the multiple streams of income concept that I found in my research. 65% of the wealthy in my study had at least three streams of income. So they were doing things constantly to try and generate different sources of income. Why? Because if one of those sources dried up for whatever reason, they had the other two sources of income that they could lean on, and that helped them to survive the downturns in the economy, or if they lost a job or they lost a big customer or something like that.
Now, another myth that seems to be perpetuated by the poor people is the rich people pay no tax or pay minimal tax. Is that the case?
No, the politicians spurt that out like it's a fact, and they're absolutely just bold-faced lying. It's the fact is that most of the taxes are paid by wealthy people. And in fact, wealthy people have a significantly higher income tax rate than everybody else. So don't buy into any of that nonsense that the politicians are putting out there. The wealthy people are really carrying the bucket for the fiscal budget for a lot of these governments. And it's ironic because the politicians have these rich people to thank for all the taxes that they're collecting, and yet they go after these rich people like they're evil people. And I found in my research it's just wasn't true. They were paying more than their fair share. In fact, they were being punished for their success through excess taxation.
Now, interestingly, you started off by saying that a lot of these myths have been perpetuated by our parents and their parents, and in many ways it's a form of justification. If rich people inherited their money, well, it's not my fault that I wasn't rich because my parents weren't rich. Another one is that rich people got rich because they were lucky. So I'm not lucky, so therefore I didn't get rich. It's a form of justification. But it is a myth, isn't it, Tom, that rich people got there because they're lucky?
Yeah, so whenever you hear that, Michael, what the people who are saying that are really saying is that it's random luck, that the rich people had nothing to do with their success, that they just got lucky. They were in the right place at the right time. Well, here's the thing. That wealthy person was running around like a chicken with their head off, trying to find the right place and the right time. So they got lucky just because of the fact that they were taking action. They were being persistent. They were never quitting. And even a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then. And this is what makes wealthy people so special, is they are constantly looking for the acorns, and they eventually find it. They get lucky. But the poor people think, oh, they just happened to be sitting around and got lucky. Their ship came in and they were, just at the right place at the right time. So totally false.
So their luck is really a byproduct of their hard work. So what we're currently discussing are the myths that I've heard, that Tom's heard, probably that you've heard also about wealthy people. It's important to understand these and get them out of your head so that you can develop rich habits rather than poor habits. So today we discussed 4 of them: that rich people inherited their money. We know that's not true. That rich people don't work hard. We also know that's not true. In fact, they work harder. That rich people pay less income tax. No, sure, they have accountants and advisors and don't pay more tax than they need to, but the system in the United States and in Australia, Tom, is much the same, that the wealthy people in Australia pay a much higher percentage of tax. And the last myth that we've debunked today, I guess, Mythbusters, Tom, we're Mythbusters, is that the rich people got lucky. Next week, Tom, I'd like to discuss another 4 myths. So are we okay to come back next week?
Yeah, I can't wait, Michael.
Fantastic. And for those of you who've enjoyed this and learned a few things, just share it once, like it, pass it on through Facebook, Twitter, or just forward the blog that you've received to one or two friends. Pass it forward. Catch up with you next week for our regular Rich Habits, Poor Habits video.